San Diego County officials order all bars, wineries, and breweries that do not serve food to close up shop yet again. This comes as Governor Newsom orders several counties, including Los Angeles County, to shut down bars after a surge in COVID-19 cases. Fox 5 legal analyst Wendy Patrick joining us now to explain all this. Wendy, good morning.
Good morning, Raul.
Okay, here we go again. Legally speaking, how can the county and the governor do this? That's what a lot of people want to know.
Well, county governments, state governments, there's a lot of leeway given in some kind of national emergency, whether it's national security or whether it's a health crisis. So what we've seen around the nation, there's been lots of lawsuits that have been filed, and there's been lots of lawsuits filed against our California governor. But governors have these types of authority measures if they're reasonably related to what they're doing. So it's that latter part, Raul, that people have challenged and have been challenging ever since March. Is it right for him to close X, Y, and Z? Can you say that's reasonably related to the point that he's trying to make? So, for example, when he closed all the bars in those 7 counties that don't serve food over the last couple of days, and now closing beaches in advance of July 4th weekend, what they're going to challenge is, was that and were those measures reasonably related to stemming the contagion of the virus, or was that governmental overreach? So that's the question. And you're going to have to ask me in 100 years if you expect there to be precedent. Wait till the next pandemic and I'll probably know. We don't have the kinds of answers that we'd like to have as to the legal challenges that are wending their way through the system right now.
They want to mitigate this whole thing, but it seems, a lot of people are saying it seems it's arbitrary. Breweries, bars, you guys shut down, but if you serve a sandwich, you don't shut down. People saying this is just arbitrary. How do you respond to that?
Here's the counter argument that, and we all know that tonight is last call in those establishments for San Diegans, even though we were not on that list of 7. Here's how bars are different. Here's the argument, Raul. Bars are places where by nature people congregate in close proximity without masks. You don't drink through masks, at least you shouldn't. And nobody wants to drink their wine through a straw. I understand they market those masks with straws. But you have people in close proximity, so they're not social distancing. They're talking loudly, sometimes to hear over music or other people. They are staying longer in enclosed spaces if they're inside. You have judgment being impaired by more alcohol consumption. You have a compilation of risk factors. It's a perfect storm for transmission. Now, how else do we know that bars are uniquely dangerous? Because we've been able to trace as best we can in San Diego County, for example, some types of contagion to bars. But it's not as easy in other places because you really can't contact trace when you have a group of strangers in close proximity, talking loudly, no masks, as you can if it's maybe a family gathering where you know who was there. So you put all that together, and what do you come up with? According to the government, a rational explanation as to why the governor's closing bars.
I mean, you mentioned it. It's a perfect storm. You're checking off all the boxes of things that you don't want during this thing. What can bar owners do? If they're going to be closed, they're going to start losing money again. Is there anything they can do in the meantime?
Start serving food.
Yeah.
Start serving
Is that
food
a real solution, or how quickly would you need to get licensing?
Part of what they've already done is tried to figure out how can we reconfigure our space in order to provide more social distancing. But you don't envision a bar as plexiglass little bubbles of people, kind of like people have done in salons and other kinds of places. And do you limit the time that somebody's allowed to be in a bar? Remember, that's part of the reason why bars are different from other establishments is you're in there for long periods of time. Ventilation is another one. So you see bars thinking outside the box as to exactly your question. How can we make ourselves safer so maybe we won't have to close down if God forbid there's a second wave?
You mentioned the contact tracing would be very difficult in a setting like this, but what can people do if they think they contracted COVID-19 while they're out at a bar? What then?
I'd like to do a whole segment on that, Raul, so I hope you'll have me back on that question because it's very difficult. This is a virus that is so contagious that there have been many cases where people have said exactly that. Oh, I think I got it at such and such. I was there on Friday night. But they've been out and about. They've shopped. They've gone out. They've been jogging. They've met with friends. Maybe people are going to be having 4th of July celebrations. How can you possibly trace the source of an infection, especially because we know how long it can be in somebody that's asymptomatic? And not enough people are wearing masks to where we can guess as to where we got it. Now, if we debarked off the Grand Princess in March, I think we'd have a pretty solid case. But otherwise, it's almost impossible. But that doesn't mean that some businesses aren't going to see those lawsuits and aren't preparing now to be able to say, no way, you got it here. Look at all the safety measures we had in place.
Yeah.
Bars haven't been doing that as part of the criticism.
I'm going to ask you one last question that is incredibly unfair, because you mentioned earlier we want to travel 100 years in the future for this, but what happens next?
Right.
Wendy, what's next?
What comes next is the courts are going to have to determine how we apply the laws we already have on the books to what we're seeing. Are these in fact reasonably related? Are these safety measures? Can you argue they've been reasonably related to the outbreak that we're seeing? We've had outbreaks before and we didn't do anything like we're doing now. So this is a case of first impression. You call it the novel coronavirus. These are novel court decisions as well. So that's going to be the analysis. Different question, but the same analysis, Raul. I'm sure we'll start seeing those court cases come to decision. Then I'll be back on to talk about those.
Making an excellent point once again. Wendy Patrick, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.